everybody. This is the Launch Sequence Podcast. I am Space Tomato.
And I'm Draaz3n.
And today we've got a decent amount of discussion on Star Citizen for you guys. We're going to talk a little bit about Avatar, the game, which might surprise some of you. We'll probably touch a little bit on Halo, but I think we're mainly sticking to Star Citizen today. How you been this week, dude?
Dude, I've been good, man.
Yeah?
I've been playing a new mobile game called Infinite Galaxy.
Mhm.
It's a MMORTS game, just something to do to pass the time. It has some fleet building mechanics like Star Citizen, but the unique part was they have alliances, and I joined one, biggest on the server that I have, a big mega alliance.
Wait, is this a mobile
And
game or is it a computer?
yeah, it's a mobile game, and it was pretty cool. I'd seen a lot of ads on it because it's a sci-fi game, so of course I'd see it some way. But yeah, I joined an alliance, and talking with the people there, they are people that came from Eve. They play Star Citizen, and the leader of the org is actually a developer for Fire Sprite. And of course, you know who Fire Sprite is, right?
Yep, they're making Theaters of War.
Yep, as well as Arena Commander and I think one other thing as well. And yeah, had some really interesting discussions with him. Nothing leak worthy, of course, but he just kind of confirmed that Theaters of War chugged along very nicely with the Evo testing, which we knew about, that he's feeling pretty positive about Theaters of War. So pretty neat. So now I have a little insider source for Fire Sprite, which is kind of unique. Great guy.
So with something like that, a mobile game, how do you end up being in contact with everybody? Just another Discord server, or is there something on the game itself?
Yeah, it's a Discord server. They have a Discord server. You don't have to be on it. We can talk in game as well.
Okay.
But I decided to elect to join their Discord, and I found, the leader of this guy is also in SC Leaks as well. So I'm like, something. They
I
also had
see.
a Star Citizen server there as well. So
Yeah.
I asked, hey, anybody play Star Citizen? He's like, oh, do I play it? I don't only
Me
play
too.
it. I develop for
Yeah.
it. And I'm like, oh, really?
That's cool. That's cool. Well, as I was just saying before we got started, um, I've been dealing with my puppy. Me and my wife have adopted a puppy in the last few months, and he has grown. He's grown a lot. And we have another dog, a Pomeranian, who's older, definitely older, and he just annoys the crap out of him constantly. Like just before here, you heard me yelling at him because the other dog's just sleeping on the ground. He'll just come up and start biting him. And like I know he wants to play, but like dude, he's sleeping. And I'm watching them outside right now. Like he's just chasing him around. But this dog is wild. I love him. I'm always posting pictures of him in the Discord server, and everybody on Twitch is constantly asking for the. I'm thinking about replacing my webcam with the puppy picture. Honestly, get so many requests for puppy pictures, dude. You would think that my dog is the one running the stream, but
Well, you've seen other streamers do it where they have an extra camera just for their animal, like wherever they're sleeping or hanging out typically.
yeah, the problem is he doesn't hang out anywhere. He's everywhere. I'd have to have like 5 cameras around the farm. We've got a couple acres, so he's all the way down there sometimes. But it's whatever. When we move to the U.S., if I can take him with us, he's really big, so I don't know if he can come with us. But when we move to the U.S. and if he's got a little spot, the indoor dog, obviously it'd make it easier. He'd probably just like chill in here, to be honest. But that's what's been taking up my time. That and obviously Star Citizen, which is the reason we're all here. So
Absolutely.
let's I want to have a different conversation about Star Citizen today. I was thinking we
Yeah,
talk.
let's talk about what you were discussing about the salty Mike video that you
Yeah.
watched. I haven't seen it yet. I'd like to hear what your thoughts were
Yeah,
on it.
I tune into Salty Mike quite a bit, mainly because he has a good format where he gets people on to the microphone to talk. One of the things though that sometimes happens on there is that he'll get people in there that just generally aren't meant to be on a microphone. Yeah, they might be able to, put out their thoughts, or they might have a good opinion, but sometimes I'll be watching the video and the person will come on and it will just kill the momentum. I mean, obviously it's still good because we want to hear what they have to say, but I'm just like, there are drawbacks, there are pros and cons to that sort of format. But anyways, This last one he did was talking about Endgame and brought people in to talk about what's Endgame to them. And I thought this was a really good discussion, partially because we just got a ton of details on some of the bigger parts of the game, refining, refueling, uh, deep space probing, and it's all very interesting. But when you think about all the different things that people do in this game, and even one of his guests was saying, I have an org and it's industrial, and so we focus on industrial stuff. That's what's our bread and butter. But like, look at our org. We've got an industry division, a science division, a security division. We've also got racing, media. There's a lot of stuff in this game that people want to do to the point where it's not just contained in one genre or one section of gameplay. And it really interesting to me to think about how many different types of end games there are. So I'd like to hear what your end game would be. And I feel your end game's probably changed a little bit just as mine has because we now have an organization, but what is that ideal end game for you?
I feel like that's such a broad question. So I'll throw the question back to you, mainly because I don't feel I know the appropriate way to answer that
Fair
question
enough.
just
It
yet.
took me a little
Maybe I
while to
just need
figure it
more
out.
context.
I was listening to this video at the gym this morning, and it wasn't until the end of my session that I really kind of understood for myself what endgame looks like. And there are two different sections of the end game for me, and I feel this is probably true for a lot of people who are in organizations. Obviously, we want to have org-based gameplay be part of that, that evergreen content that we're experiencing. We also want to be able to do stuff ourselves. So I would like my end game content to be running the org in multiple systems and overseeing the logistics between our operations. So making sure that our industry division, who is planted in the Stanton system, is communicating with the industry division in the Magnus system because we have an op going on between the two that they're split between in security. I want to see the complications that come from running a massive amount of people in a very, very detailed environment. It's something obviously that people do in Eve a lot, but in Eve, everybody's a spaceship. Everybody is, you know, kilometers away from what's actually happening. Here, you're in a ship. You're watching it happen around you. You're taking part in it with your hands, with your feet on the ground. And I think that's going to be a huge, huge, huge part of gameplay for people in orgs. That's what they want to see. They want to see community working together to get jobs done in a very complex scenario. Solo, I want my end game to be a data. I want to be the shadow broker, man. I want to be exploring and gathering data from different sources and brokering it out to others. The difficult part about that is then, obviously I might end up having a conflict of interest with the org, so I have to figure that all out. How is that going to work? But I really, really do want to be in a situation where I am either discovering or acquiring the information that nobody else has and deciding where it goes. That that sounds like magic to me, but that's my end game.
Well, that's kind of interesting because and from previous talks that we've had before, I kind of assumed once you got more into the org, you'd be more embedded into the science stuff because it kind of ties in with both your personal goals for Star Citizen and the gameplay loops that you want to see, as well as maybe helping out that industry a bit more because
Oh, don't get me
God
wrong,
knows
I
how
will be.
understaffed science is. But yeah, it's kind of interesting hearing you say that.
I think that's
And
still very science based. It's heavily based on exploration.
absolutely. Oh, 100%. I think it's really unique. Your role and my role have a lot of overlaps, which is nice because it's going to allow both of us to have our own unique experiences within the org while also not only having the pressure of running an entire org on one person. I love our decentralized structure that we have where, every division is essentially going to be able to run themselves and you and I really have more of an oversight position,
Yeah.
which is going to be really cool. It's going to allow us to actually be able to play the game when we want to versus moving around data on a spreadsheet all the time. But
Yeah, it's It's Dosek that's going to be doing all the dirty work.
Exactly. Yeah. I guess hearing you say that and hearing you explain, so I guess there's two, sections of that. There are org goals and then there are personal goals.
Yeah.
I would say as far as the org goes, I've really enjoyed my time in security. Science is really cool too. I have no want to be an industry whatsoever. I'll help them where I can, but I'm just not my thing to get down and dirty with
Hmm.
some minerals and stuff.
Yeah.
But I definitely see myself, overseeing any more of the larger fleet movements for security. I'll probably just be another, pro Tim kind of division master for security, since I really like it there. I really like learning all the intricacies of each ship, which ships do better in what situations.
Hmm.
And I feel like I get along really well with the current division master of security, Grignac. So I really feel like that's going to be my place within the org. I'll help oversee things, but I think security will definitely be my home. And getting to be a commander or a stand-in commander for a big fleet when we eventually do have to have some larger battle will be really cool.
Yeah.
Because I'll want to be really good with tactics to make sure we mitigate our losses while maximizing the enemies. As far as my personal goals go, it's so flexible. I mean, my final fleet isn't even anywhere near completion. So many of
I
my
would hope
ships
not.
are right. Ah, man. So many of my ships are soloable or are built around solo gameplay. I had a Polaris at one point. I'll eventually have some large capital ship that'll fulfill a big combat role, whether that be the Polaris or something else. But I have a little bit of everything. I mean, the Corsair is going to be my daily driver. I'll probably end up running with you sometimes to do some shady exploration and information brokering, and have all the guns with none of the armor with my Corsair. I'll have a Taurus to run a little bit of cargo, but I really don't know what my end goal is as a solo player. Just to have a lot of fun. I think exploration is probably the one thing I'm really looking forward to, which is why I have my Corsair.
Well, that's not
I
what I
may get my
expected.
fleet fleshed out with a different exploring ship or something. Who knows?
I didn't know you were into exploration, to be honest.
I feel like we've had this conversation so many times.
Probably. I have too many things to remember. And don't
Absolutely.
get me wrong, when I use the example with industry being, you know, part of the logistics I'm handling, I don't mean just industry. That's just the example. I want to have my hands in all the pots when it comes to the org and be helping get the macro flow of the org together. I think that's what draws me to 4X games. That's what draws me to real-time strategy games, and it's going to be really cool to see that play out in a much more detailed environment.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the great thing is we'll be able to lean on each other for a lot of that. So we won't always feel the pressure of having to do everything ourselves, which is really cool.
Yeah. So thinking about that stuff, Endgame, and what we want to do, obviously, then the question comes up, where is the path to that? And I think there are a lot of people, you know, whether it be through what I have put out this year in terms of my videos or what other people have put out or just in general expectations that CIG has set up, a lot of people are sitting at the desk right now looking at Star Citizen and thinking, this game has a year to impress me. I think a lot of people are at that point where they're like, things need to get moving or this game's really going to start to lose my attention, and I don't blame them. I think that's why I made that video earlier this year. You know, I think that CIG's right at that point, but I also think that that's going to be really, really important that they actually do make that happen because we need a clear line from where we are now to the end game content that we want. So let's talk about the state of some of these things that allow us to do the end game content. Let's talk about. Hold
Let's
on,
talk about
I gotta
exploration
close the window.
because
Sorry, give me 1 second. This guy wants me to pray. Okay.
I mean, maybe you should. Who knows?
Not in the middle of my podcast. Thank you.
Let's talk about exploration, though. I feel like
Yeah.
that seems to be something common between you and I. I mean, you have, well, I guess it's part of my fault is that you have a Carrack now, but you are really, you have the MSR, which has always been the ship that you wanted, and you have it now. You're always in exploration, and now you know why I have a Corsair is not just to shoot people, but also to explore people and shoot them at the same time. So let's talk
Yeah.
about that.
Well, Exploration as a function is technically in the game. Exploration as a viable feature, though, is definitely not. And what I mean by that is that it's possible to set up an exploration scenario if you wanted to. If you really wanted to, you can make it happen. I've seen people do it. You go out, you go scanning in an asteroid belt or in a Lagrange point or even on a planet, and you find rocks that are really valuable. Then you go into public chat, you type up a message. Hey, I've got a location for a 60% quantanium rock. There's another one right next to it that's 30%. This is a guaranteed XXX amount of hundreds of thousands of AUEC. Who would like the coordinates? Who would like to add me to their party? And you get, a couple hits. And you say, okay, well, I'm selling this information for 100,000 AUEC. And they say, okay, cool. They pay you the money, you add them to the party, and they come to you. Now, that is technically exploration possibility because you are exploring and you're getting paid for it. However, that's about as reliable as it was to send money to somebody before we actually got the feature last year, right? You would have to set up a beacon. You'd have to make sure that the right person accepted that beacon and all this stuff. And it's a workaround for a game system that we're still waiting for. So exploration where it is right now is pretty abysmal, but you can kind of get a sense of how it's going to work as we look forward. And with scanning coming up, it's a big scanning update coming up in the next update in less than a month. I think that's the first step.
Absolutely. We need exploration as a viable gameplay loop that you can make money on and that is integrated within the game as a easy way for people with the right ships and the right ability to do it. That is when we have exploration. You can have exploration in any game out there where you can move around and look at things. There is some amount of exploration, and we have it. You really have to create your own gameplay loop right now. Some people like to argue that we need more systems for there to be exploration, and while I do agree with that, to explore new places, there's so much more that exploration entails beyond that. There's so
Yeah.
much more on the day to day, even in places that you fly by all the time. Like you said, finding new asteroids that spawn in that are very valuable, that a miner would really like to know where that's located. It saves them time, saves them a lot of effort that they're having to put in because you just went out and found that. So I 100% agree with where you're going with that. And I want to also throw this back on the community that it's not just systems we need, it's a gameplay loop that CIG needs to implement in order for us to have it.
We also need valuable things that can be, we need to be able to actually have coordinates. And this new scanning, actually, I think it's a new HUD update, seems to be bringing at least the the beginning of that. We now have a compass on the top of our ship. So we're starting to get to that point where you could tell people directions, but really up until now, you could not define somebody, go here, do this, unless you had a beacon. So that's probably a big part of it too. And
Absolutely.
you make a good point in that a lot of people seem to think that they're going to be an explorer and find the next jump point. And while that's certainly a possibility in this game, 90% of your job is going to be just finding resources for other people to benefit from. Find that mineral deposit, find that broken down ship, find that cave with the harvestables in it.
Your intent should be on that. If you're really into exploration and that's your gameplay loop, you need to understand what your majority of your day to day is going to be, and it's going to be that. And if that doesn't excite you or interest you, then exploration may not be the best gameplay loop for
Yeah.
you. I hate to say it, and I think a lot of people are going to end up being let down that they're not going to get to be the next, major explorer, the Christopher Columbus of Star Citizen. There are so many other people who want to do that too, and as soon as a new system drops, every single explorer is going to be out there and it's going to be piecemealed out like crazy. So
Yep.
think about the more day to day and you'll be on the right track for what exploration is going to be like.
And it's also going to come down to CIG making enough detailed things for us to find. We could go on and on about how people need to realize they're going to be searching the same planet for weeks and finding resources and stuff, but if CIG doesn't actually build in the occasional point of interest in a planet or a moon, then you're not going to want to go out there because you don't even know if you're ever going to find anything. And That's gonna be tough. That's gonna be a big balance between their procedurally generated stuff and handcrafting it enough to feel different every time. I don't wanna go walk into the same cave every time I discover one. I don't wanna come across the same crashed ship or the same set of rocks every time, I deep space scan one and go find it. There does need to be a lot of variety there for explorers to not just start to get really bored.
Absolutely, 100% agree.
But I do think exploration is going to be a really, really cool part of the game. That's actually a video I'm putting out tomorrow. By the time this podcast goes live, it will have already been out. But I'm taking a shot at the first look at deep space probing. That's what I've been waiting for. Some people are combat, some people like mining, some people want refining, refueling, farming, even base building. Exploration is where I'm at. So I'm excited to see that coming in. But you also said that you're into security, and security obviously entails combat. And we both know there are a lot of things going on with combat. We 314 seems to be, as John Crew put it, an apocalyptic change to combat. Have you been following some of the changes we've been seeing in Avocati?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. With the most recent change being the new capacitor gameplay, as well as a weapons rework that has been needed for God the longest time. I think that's going to be kind of our maybe tier 0 or tier 1 definitely tier 1 implementation. I think tier 2 is going to be armor. I think first is weapons and capacitor gameplay, kind of managing your power on your ships, and then the second will be physicalized armor. When armor comes into gameplay, you're then going to get maybe those Origin fanboys realizing that, hey, yeah, I might have some good armor, but it's so expensive to repair because it's Origin. You'll have Drake people saying, I don't have any armor, what the hell? You'll have Aegis people being like, I last forever, and this is a lot more of a meta ship to fly in and fight in. So, not exactly all those are going to play out how we think. I mean, I'm just probably overextending, over exaggerating here, but
Showing your own ideas of the companies.
yeah, exactly. I mean, hey, I'm a Drake fan, but I understand the pros and cons. But I think when this comes on in 314, the weapons and capacitors, that's going to be a nice movement towards where combat's going to end up. That's going to be a lot more thought out process, not a charge in, blow everything up like it has been. A lot of broken weapon metas. It's going to be a lot more thought taken into the process, which I really like.
Yeah.
People who don't think about every combat situation that they go into are going to be hurt a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
And I'm happy for that.
I'm surprised by some of the reactions to these changes. I've been on Twitter all day about it. To be honest, I've gotten a lot more active on Twitter lately, but I'm seeing people saying things like, "This overcomplicates things," or "This we don't want this. This is too much. Combat was fine." And I sit here and I'm like, this is something that you find in Star Wars Squadrons. Like, this is something that was in earlier Star Wars games that we used to play, 15, 20 years ago. This isn't a really complex addition. This is like standard in space fighting. And the thing that really bugs me about people saying that it's too much is like, okay, so what did you think of mining consumables? What do you think of mining gadgets? What do you think of the drug mixing that people can do for medical gameplay? Or the ability to, balance the pressure while you're refueling a ship? Like, these are things that they can't just make a game, make it super basic, and then tell people, okay, complicate this. Like, they have to build in these complex systems, right? They have to make sure that these things that they're adding provide gameplay for the very, very veteran player who has been doing this for 1,000 hours and needs something that's very deep and interesting to keep tweaking, and the beginner player who's just jumped in and has no freaking clue what's going on. They can't just be like, okay, combat's in a good place, we're done. No, they can you imagine if they dropped combat right now and didn't add anything else to it to make it more complex? We'd just be doing the same circle strafing, jousting, flyby stuff forever. These are the things that we need in order for the game to get more complex. And yeah, it's going to be annoying to have it balanced. The metas are going to change, like you said, with armor being brought in at a different time and stuff like that. But like, this is the nature of a game in development. And I think I- it kind of speaks towards there being two different sets of people playing Star Citizen. Some people wanted to stay fairly casual. Some people wanted to go very, very deep on the sim. And I said there were two people, but there's a spectrum in between them. And CIG is not going to be able to please them all. So I'm very curious to see how combat goes, especially after this change. People going to be up in arms, but drama is drama.
And that's the thing. Combat and security is a gameplay loop. It is a legitimate gameplay loop that people will be focusing on. Quite a few will be focusing on when the game finally comes out in some state. So people need to understand that it's combat, while it's going to be an integral part of your day to day, much like medical. There are going to be people who are more experienced and who make money on that. So people need to understand that, you're going to have to understand how medical works, how PvP ship fighting works, because there will be people out there who will be experts on it. You don't need to be an expert. You just need to
No.
know an acceptable level.
Yeah.
But you need to understand that it's not going to be like that for everybody. There will be people who prioritize in combat, and you need to be aware that that is going to be some way that people are going to make quite a bit of money.
Yeah. I mean, look at the bounties we have already. We have like 3 or 4 different levels of bounties I think you can track down now. You don't have to go up in bounties, right? You can always stay at that bottom level and keep knocking out easy to fight people. Unfortunately, you're not going to make as much money, but like that's what it is, you know? I don't make as much money as somebody who's making full featured films when I make videos for YouTube, but that's because I'm sticking at the beginner level. I'm not making that jump up to the next stage, and that's something that's a thing in a game too. So I'm interested to see what they do with combat. I'm not the kind of person who sees change and immediately thinks that something's wrong. But I'm also not the person who says, if it's or I am the person that says if it's broken or if it's not broken, don't fix it. That being said,
You're also the person to run nice shiny guns that do big explosions
I do.
because
Yeah.
you like it.
Those
So now you'll actually have to
C788s.
think. Yeah.
Yeah. Now I'll just have to think about how much money I'm going to spend because I'm just going to keep on laying on that gun. I will keep playing with that
Oh
gun like
my.
I was before. That thing is fun. But yeah, it's a very very divisive changes that are coming up, and I'm super excited for them, to be honest. It's a game in development. This is what we're here for. We're here for the big changes to see how they swing, see how the community acts, see how the company takes the feedback, and see what they do next. But besides that, what else? They also talked about refining. And refining gameplay is one that I've never really thought about that much. I kind of always thought about it as a periphery game loop, but it is very much going to be a main part of our Citizen. Now, what I'm wondering is how much, how is Quantanium going to be affected by people taking part in the refining gameplay? Because they're the reason that we're going to be able to get Quantanium and hydrogen fuel and stuff like that. So let's say we get an org of
300 people.
sure 300 people, and every single person in that org takes a refining ship out into Stanton and starts refining Quantanium and starts selling it. Will we actually see the price drop in Stanton? I expect we will, but like how?
They already talked about this.
Right, but they've talked about how the players will have some difference, but not as much because the NPCs make up most of the effects in the background system and using the quantum system. But
So if players make up 10% of the entire economy,
mhm,
and we're 300 people of the 3 million people that are in Star Citizen or that would play or that exist, right?
mhm,
300 people is not going to make it. Might make a couple AUEC difference, maybe. If you have
right,
everybody in the org taking out a refinery ship and refining Quantanium at the same time and flooding the market, I think regionally, if we're in the Magnus system, let's say, for instance, or the Ellis system, whatever. Magnus is small, Ellis is a little bit bigger. If we're in that system, I think, and we're selling all of that stuff we just refined in that system, it's going to create an oversupply.
yeah,
And you might see demand drop because, the things like that. I think it'll be system generated. I don't think you're going to see all of that spread out over wide across the entire persistent
Yeah, no, no, no,
universe.
no, no.
I think
I'm
in that
talking
system
about,
mode there will
that's why
be.
I'm saying specifying just in Stanton if we did this. And let's even go even further, let's say just around Hurston. I'm just thinking because refining is a game loop with the effects that will touch everybody. Much like a scanning improvement is going to affect everybody because we all use scanning. We all use hydrogen and quantum fuel, you know? We don't all go to war. We don't all need security. We don't all need exploration, but we all need that fuel. So when it comes to refining as a game loop, how much is that going to affect the game when we get a lot of people doing that refining? That's an interesting point to me. That's what interests me with refining. That and the
Yeah.
idea that, are they going to split up gas and solid material refiners or not? But refining is also something that I don't know. I think they said that they are in the very beginning stages of it, maybe. No, no, no. No, when they talked about it, they seemed like they had a very good idea of how it was going to work. Because in the last couple of years, whenever they talk about these things, like for instance, they talked about salvage. What was that, last year, March or so, April? And it was like around the time that we were all like, okay, they must be pretty good on salvage. They must be doing a lot with it. But the way that they were talking about it was like, yeah, we want to do this. We're thinking about doing that. We're planning on doing this. Finally, they are having discussions about these topics and they talk in the present tense or even sometimes the past tense. And I'm like, oh, thank God. And I know I'm going a
Yeah.
little on a tangent here, but that's just, refining is closer than I've felt it ever was. And, it could still be a ways off. It could still be a year off. But the fact that they're actually even working on it is like, at least it's better than it was a year ago.
Yeah, and that's, it's hard for me to discuss any of the industrial gameplay because that is the stuff that least interests me. I did mining in 310, I believe, whenever the rock came out. Maybe that was 311, I forget now. I haven't mined since it. I thought it was going to be a thing for me and I thought I was going to get a lot of enjoyment out of it, but I just didn't.
Hmm.
I got rid of my rock, I got rid of my prospector, and decided to move on from that. That ship had sailed with me, especially when they started adding the components and stuff. I'm like, okay, this is actually becoming a legitimate gameplay loop, and now I'm not interested.
Mm-hmm.
Before, when it was a little bit easy mode, I enjoyed it a little bit. It's like, I'll go out and chill. Now it's actually something I have to think about. I don't like thinking when it comes to mining. I like thinking when it comes to combat. So just ended up not being my thing. So when it comes to mining, refining, and all of that, I know it's going to be 100% critical for our org. And I'm going to understand it to the extent that I absolutely need to understand it and nothing further.
Yeah, and that's fair. I do like that you even said, "Oh yeah, I tried mining. It wasn't for me, so I took a step back because this is becoming a game loop." Not everything's going to be for everybody. I really like mining. I didn't think I was going to, and it might actually be that I like it just because I do it so much on stream where I need to be a little bit calmer and have something chill to do to talk with people. But I quite enjoy the mining. And I probably won't enjoy refueling, but some people will love that. I don't really like combat, but I know you're into that. So it's the game as it gets more diverse and more specific is going to have more things that not everybody's into. And that's honestly, I look forward to that. So,
Absolutely.
so besides necessarily the end game components, how are you feeling about 314? Now that we have a pretty decent idea, and I will say this, there are a couple things that it seems they haven't really talked about that they're adding, like the gray cat armors and I don't actually know if the particle lighting system is going to be in there, but there are a couple other things I can't remember them off the top of my head right now that we know are going to be in the update. But overall, from what you've seen from leaks, from the roadmap, from progress report, monthly reports, what are your thoughts on 314? How are you feeling about it? A lot of people feel like it's gutted, like it doesn't matter. In recent weeks, I think people have realized it's a little more important, but I want to know straight from the horse's mouth if it's worth it.
I'm a horse.
Just for today. A Texan horse, a Bronco, right? That's your guys' thing.
I'll
Your
be a
Broncos or your
Bronco.
stout Mustang? No, they're not
Longhorns.
Mustangs.
Longhorns.
Those aren't horses. You
No,
gonna
it's a
put
cow.
what are you, a unicorn?
That's a cow. I'd rather be a cow than a horse, you
Okay,
know.
cool. Then I would like to hear it from the cow's
Yeah.
mouth. If Drazen
Yeah.
wants to be called a cow, so be it.
Well, I went to UT, so I'm a Longhorn, hook 'em horns. So, Anyway, I don't know. I feel like 314 is okay. I'm excited for the Taurus because it's in my CCU chain, so I'll finally no longer have 6 Nova tanks that are almost entirely useless for me right now. Those will all become 6 Tauruses, so then I'll have 6
Oh,
constellations.
perfect.
So with that part, I'm definitely excited. I think that's going to be cool for me personally. Other than that, not too excited. I mean, Orison is going to be beautiful. That will probably be my new home place, as is it will be for a lot of other people. As
Oh
long as
yeah,
I can get above 20 frames. If it's worse than Microtech, I'll just tough it out and stay at Microtech for a while.
and
I'm
that's
not
far.
really excited. Yeah, I mean, I'm not. I'm not really excited for 314. It's just another patch for me.
That's fair.
Um, I I feel like we've had a pretty mm, meh patches since last year, honestly. Since
Yeah.
Q1 of last year, I haven't really seen any exciting patches that are really getting me back into the game. The capacitor and weapons rework is interesting and notable. I'm gonna sit and wait for Subliminal to put out a video on how to perfectly kit out my ship, so I
hmm
don't have to do that work on my own.
hmm
But aside from that, okay.
I think that's fair. I think you are reflecting a lot of people's feelings, especially with the idea that there haven't been many exciting patches in the last 18 months. I get on people's cases when they say things like, "Oh, they haven't added any gameplay," because that's just not true. That's not true. They've added gameplay, but has that been exciting? For most people, no. And 314 is honestly, while there is some difference there, they are completing the first system, which is a big deal, at least planet-wise, not necessarily with the asteroids, points of interest, the Aaron Halo belt, the jump points, all that stuff. But planet-wise, they're at least finishing the first system in this update, so that's a big deal. But I'm gonna have to say I'm kind of similar to you that it's a cool update. Now, I'm interested in getting new stuff. I'm really interested. I'm super excited for that scanning update. But as far as a patch that I feel could get people back into the game, 314 is not it. And I am definitely holding off. I will not say that 315 is it. I'm not going to fall for that. I'm not going to say, oh, 314 is light, but look at 315. There's so much stuff. I'm not going to do that because we know it's going to lose stuff. And we do know that we will most likely get medical gameplay, which will be a big addition. And I think that's enough to get some people back in the game. But even then, medical gameplay isn't the kind of thing that's going to move the economy. That's going to get everybody involved. You know what would? A cargo refactor. I think that would get everybody involved because cargo affects everybody. So I won't say
I think you're
315
onto
is it.
something here.
Hmm.
I think you're onto something here. Cargo refactor is going to be awesome. I mean, it's really the only industrial gameplay loop I have left to even make money off of, and I'll have to have something, either that's salvage or that's cargo. So I have to pick one of the two, and by golly, it's probably going to end up being cargo. But I still stick with what I said. I think episode 1 of this podcast, right before or during Fleet Week. Check the game 2 times a year.
Mhm.
Check it during Fleet Week and the anniversary sale. I'm sticking by my guns, man. Check this game out at the end of November, early December when they do their next sale.
Yeah.
That's it. I'm sticking by my guns on that because I don't see anything from here until then that's really going to make you want to hop into the game. I think if you take little pieces from each patch, they're interesting on their own. But if you wrap those all together and just hop in 6 months later and experience them all at one time, I think you're going to have a lot more enjoyment than playing it month to month like that. So that's my
Absolutely, yeah.
opinion, though.
If you are a casual player, there's no point in playing the game right now. I'm telling people next
Absolutely.
summer. Next summer, probably actually next fall, because a lot of things seem like they are scheduled to start finishing up Q2 of next year. And that might just be because that's as far out as they can have the progress tracker go, since that's, a year out. So very well those things might go even further than that. But there are a few things that are finishing in Q1 that I think are going to start to make a bigger deal later on in the year. And there are some things that they have spoken about that, I would have expected to come out this year, but most likely are gonna get pushed till next year. Things like um, what's it called? Server meshing, the pyro
Pyro.
system, obviously, yeah, refueling, refining, the the new star map I think will be in by then. But there are other things. I was looking through the progress tracker, I think just yesterday, and I'm scrolling through it and I'm like, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Look at
Yeah.
that. Look at that.
But
Oh right. That's
I'll still just go back to what I just said. Check every time there's a sale. Check around. You don't have to do it during the sale. The servers are terrible typically during sales.
mhm.
Check a little bit before, a little bit after the sale. If you already own the game, just hop in somewhere around that time frame.
Yeah.
This at the end of the year, I 100% think it's worth at least checking out for 2 hours. Why not? I mean, what else are you going to do for 2 hours, right?
Yeah.
Do that, and then like you're saying, hop in around Q2, which is typically around when we get freaking ILW or Fleet Week, however you want to pronounce it. Check in again then, and guess what? That's Q2 is going to be right around a sale again. So I just like to say use sales as the benchmark for whenever you come back in to check on the game for a couple hours, because they typically try and coincide big gameplay loops or big releases around their sales, because they'll capitalize off of these new features and ship sales. So that's why I just think stick with that and you'll probably be perfectly fine. I mean, I feel like the games we're checking on every 6 months, which is around when a sale happens. So why
So would
not?
you say December and June?
Mm,
It's right
mm,
after both sales.
yeah, I would say December and June. Yeah, do that if you want to do it after the sales. If you don't want to experience the sales themselves or to
Yeah.
check out new ships, because I feel like there are some neat stuff that happens during the sales. Like we'll get to see, like we got to see the F8 on the show floor, which if that kind of thing intrigues you, then it might be worth checking during the sale. But if you don't check during the sale, then check after. Yeah, a June to
How about May and
December.
December?
Yeah.
I say December because I feel it's really good to get an experience of the last update of the year. December update usually comes out mid-December. That's a good idea to understand where the game has settled at the end of that. That's what I base my New Year video on, is that update.
Absolutely. I would agree. I think we both agree on December. I would say yes, check
Yeah.
in December. And then
May for the other
up to
one
you to
during
check if you want to
Invictus.
do May or June. I
Yeah.
think June may be a solid argument if you just really, really hate being on when the servers aren't their best.
Mhm.
Then yeah, do June. But if you're okay with that and you want to check out maybe a new ship or two or something, then do May. I mean, why not? But I think we're on the same line here of thought.
Yeah.
But again, I'm just a big proponent, and I tell all my friends who are passively interested in the game, even if they hate it, but they've tried it, I just say, hey, check back in 6 months, June and December, do it twice a year, play with me for 2 hours, and that's all I'm going to ask from
Yeah.
you,
Yeah. I'm actually gonna get started on my mid-year update. I think January and August is kind of when I'm going to do my updates, my big ones, but the August one's not going to be very nice to the game. It's not been a pretty six
No,
months.
it
So
hasn't.
that's too bad. But I'm excited to do my end of year one because I feel the second half of this year is going to be much better than the first half, I think.
I think so too. I am hoping at least, but
Yeah, yeah.
my hopes are much
Hopes and
restricted.
expectations should not line up when it comes to Star Citizen. They should not.
I just want my Corsair, goddammit. Are we allowed
Yeah.
to say that on a podcast? That might need to be
You can
clipped out. That can be
bleep it.
bleeped
I
out,
can
right?
bleep it, I
Yeah.
guess. Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
gonna have to go find it now. Just pay
Dang.
attention to what time we're at. So, okay, so Star Citizen is all good and fun, but honestly, when it comes to what we've both been doing in gaming for a long time, there's just not much fun to be had, and that is FPS combat. The Mostly because of the desync. Honestly, when you're in a fresh server, the AI is okay, but even besides the challenge of it, the weapons don't feel differentiated enough. The experience, the movements, the animations just don't feel good enough. But you know what does? You know what does do that well? You know the answer to this. Come on.
Or yeah, I'm not gonna sing Halo. Yeah,
Exactly.
get
Yes.
my
Yes.
point.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Halo is. I mean, we play that a lot. We play it in the. We play it in the community. We play it solo. We talk about it. There's a lot of joy and fun and anticipation around Halo right now. And I won't say Halo is back. You say that every time a new Halo game comes out, but man, is Halo Infinite looking good. And
We forget we also send each other memes and YouTube
it's
videos
true.
as
That's
well.
true. That's true. And Halo is kind of has grown as a project. So with the Infinite hype now comes some more hype surrounding the MCC, which is what we're normally playing. And we've got a new update coming out. Um, I, I think it's a cool update. I think the trailer was freaking cool. A lot of people like playing as elites, which is a big focus on this update. But besides that, it's mainly just like new cosmetics and stuff. What are you seeing in the MCC? For anybody who's wondering, MCC is the Master Chief Collection. This is every Halo game you get access to. So you buy this game and you get access to Halo 1 Anniversary, 2 Anniversary, Halo 3 and 4, and I believe Reach and ODST. And it's just a lot of fun, you know. They got grouped multiplayer, and you can go play with friends and hop between the different games and all that jazz. Well, what are you thinking of this latest update?
Um, I'm a big Elite fan. I think we discussed this before that I'd love to see a Halo game, or actually last podcast,
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to see a Halo game focused on elites, however, whatever time frame that fits in. So I think that's cool. I was never a guy that was like always, yearning to play as an elite. Not really my thing, but they're
Yeah,
awesome. I think they're really unique as an alien species. I think they're done really, really well.
yeah.
So that's cool. I think that's cool. I think increasing the player count and overall just 343 showing Master Chief Collection a lot of love makes me happy for Infinite, because I know if they're treating MCC this well, that they're going to put just as much care and effort and love into Infinite. So,
They have
like I was
been,
saying before, I'm drinking the 343 Kool-Aid. Hell yeah, let's get it,
yeah, they have been putting more effort into MCC than I thought they would. I thought MCC development was going to just be done. I thought they wanted to get the games done, polish the experience, because let's be honest, the experience sucked when it first launched. Thought they were just going to polish the experience and then say, okay, this is good. You guys play Halo as long as you want. We're going to go work on something else. But they are still building the seasons, putting in new armor, and they're going to have MCC running alongside Infinite. It's a long-term thing, and
Absolutely.
that surprises me.
They're doing a game that you've been playing more recently now, or actually very recently. They're doing a Sea of Thieves with it. You buy the game, but guess what? They're still going to be updating it season to season.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's any microtransactions either for MCC, is there? I haven't really
Well,
checked. I don't think
there's
so.
the Game Pass. So, and the game
Well,
that
yeah,
not sorry, not Game Pass, Battle Pass, and that Battle Pass is
yeah.
similar to what they proposed in Infinite. So this is an industry first. This Battle Pass that they're doing, and it has shaken a lot of gaming communities. In that 343 has figured out, you know, we don't like Battle Passes, sure, but they have figured out how to make it tangible, or not tangible. I don't want to say that. They've made it possible to enjoy. They've said, okay, we're gonna let you take this battle pass, but you can't buy any of this stuff. So they're not allowing people to just go, hey, I got some money, let me get the stuff that I need. They're saying, okay, you can buy the battle pass, but you still need to work. You still have to play the game and actually earn this stuff. So when you see somebody with that stuff, you know this is a problem with Star Citizen. You know when you see somebody with that armor, that stuff, that they earned that. And that's a big deal. And then on top of that, there's no FOMO mechanic. They're not saying, "Hey, you got this battle pass. It's going to last you 2 months. Sorry, it's all done. You got to buy it again if you want it or move on." They're saying, "Hey, you bought this battle pass, but I realize you had this family emergency in September. Why don't you go ahead and tuck that away? Come back to it in February. You can pick it back up right where you started, earn the same stuff, and you know what? Your computer broke. Go ahead and buy an Xbox. You'll pick up right where you left off. Or better yet, why don't you just stream it to your laptop?" Like the the strategies are coming together. And this battle pass is the latest one that I'm very impressed with them by. And that comes from Master Chief Collection. And it was celebrated in the Master Chief Collection. That's why they're bringing it over. But yeah, that's the only microtransaction I think I really know about in that game. I don't, it's not like Halo 5, thank God, where you're just like picking up these RNG loot boxes that have who God knows what
Oh
in them.
God, jeez,
I
yeah.
have so many, I have over 1 million rec points because I just didn't want to buy any of those packs anymore. I keep earning the points and I'm like, okay, cool, but like, I don't want this stuff. even if I did want it, all of the stuff that I get only applies to Warzone, right? So it doesn't feel like I'm actually customizing my Spartan. Whereas in Infinite, they're getting rid of red and blue, so every customization you do shows up to everybody. Makes it a lot more important. And that's probably another good strategic move on their part. I hope we can still identify our teammates, but
I think they're going to do that with like we saw in the videos of like shaders around people where there will be
yeah,
like a red or a blue kind of shader. I'm hoping we'll kind of have a HUD where it's like your teammates, you'll actually see their names. And if you see their names on top of them, you'll know they're friendly. And if you don't, you know they're enemy or something. They're
maybe,
going to work
yeah.
it.
I don't want to do the names, but when I was watching the trailer, I was trying to put myself in those shoes and think to myself, like, would I have known that that person was on my team or not? I don't think I'm
Do
going
you
to
like
know
how
until
MCC does it?
red and blue, right?
Oh yeah, red and blue, but they also show your number on top of your head too.
Right, for teammates. Yeah, that's fine for
For
teammates.
teammates,
Yeah.
yeah. So what if they do that for teammates instead? Instead of having colors, you just have the numbers above their heads. You just remove the
Um,
color.
and the numbers would be colored? Or
No, I mean you
you're
wouldn't see the
saying
enemy.
yeah, you're saying
Yeah,
so I'd have to pay attention to that number. I don't know.
yeah,
Maybe.
you'd see a number above their head, and if they didn't, you'd know they were an enemy. I don't know. Maybe that's
Maybe.
something. I think the slight red outline around them is probably, and the way that we've seen them doing it, where they kind of have like a reddish shade or a blue shade to them on top with the numbers, I think would be good. We'll see
Yeah.
how they do it. Still get in the game.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to wait until I get into a flight. Because they've obviously focus tested enough, so they're probably pretty confident in it, but we'll see. We'll see.
Yep.
The other thing I had to say about Halo, I had a little surprise to you. I'm actually gonna post it in the podcast chat for you right now. This is gonna make you laugh. You might have already heard about this, but uh there is a new so I'm gonna post this picture in the chat. You're gonna see it's a Halo concept art. You may have heard about this. Let me know when you see that.
Yeah.
So we're looking at a picture of Master Chief in some carnage. Got his heroic pose on. He's got the assault rifle up and all that jazz. And it turns out there is a new movie coming out in China called Unstoppable. And believe it or not, they have a protagonist that looks a lot like the Master Chief. So if you look at the movie poster, you'll see that they actually just straight up took the Master Chief and put him into the movie poster and reversed his direction. And people have done the research. They've looked for the movie, and it is confirmed that it is a real movie, and it's actually coming out in China. And they're just straight up like, yep, Master Chief, sure, we got it. We're going to use it. Now, he's not Master Chief in the movie. He's just some character. But I thought
Not
that
to get
was...
political, but this is why I don't like China, because they have no IP rights, so they can do
I mean,
stuff
yeah,
like
this
this.
happens a lot. They released the Nintendo Switch knockoff, and that's just,
Yep.
yeah, that's just how it works there. And it probably won't change anytime soon, but it was really funny. I mean, it's just as blatant as it gets. And it's not like it's a small character or anything like that either. This is one of the most recognizable characters in Western video games. So I thought that was pretty funny.
I had heard about this actually.
Yeah.
I not as much of the context as you was given, but I had heard essentially it was like a one-liner thing. I heard somebody say it was, "Oh, did you hear about China ripping off of Halo?" I
Yeah.
was like, sounds like China. You insert China and ripping off, and I just yeah, I'd get it. Yeah,
Yeah.
makes
Not
sense.
to say that they don't do a lot of their own great original stuff. It's just like it is embarrassing
Yeah.
how often this becomes a thing for media, for tech, for entertainment, for a lot of stuff. But that's enough Halo. Let's talk about our last topic here. It's Avatar Frontiers of Pandora. And this is a new game coming from Ubisoft, and I know what you guys are thinking. It's another movie adaptation. But this is apparently a very big deal game for Ubisoft. It's running on an updated version of the Snowdrop engine, and there are a couple details that point to it being more than just a cookie cutter game adaptation that somebody slapped the movie name on. You want to tell us a little bit about what you've been reading about this?
Yeah, well, like I was discussing before, there were two major things that I wanted to talk about. I'll delve into the Star Citizen perspective, which is a relevant link that I wanted to draw. So IGN put out an article that was discussing about Pandora's creatures responding intelligently to weather, player progression, time of day, engagements or disengagements, essentially talking about how intelligent the NPCs are going to be
Hmm.
and how we'll hopefully see that reflected in Star Citizen and the Persistent Universe and Squadron 42 as well. Seeing a bigger name like Ubisoft implementing this into their games, hopefully very well, but of course we'll see. Hopefully it means some good things for Star Citizen too, because this is no longer an awesome thing that Star Citizen's doing and nobody else
Yeah.
is. Now it's just a industry standard thing
It's
that
not pie in the
kind of
sky
needs
anymore.
to happen.
Yeah.
Not pie in the sky anymore. And I think as we see Star Citizen's development stretch, a lot of pie in the sky things will start to become industry norm. And I
Hmm.
think the first thing we're seeing is intelligent NPCs are
And
becoming industry norm.
and a lot of people are saying those are bad things, like, oh, Star Citizen, people are catching up to them. I mean, yeah, maybe a Star Citizen is all you care about. I am totally fine with other games being having these impressive features that Star Citizen does. None of them are going to actually put them together like Star Citizen does. That's not, the
Oh no, not at
features
all.
aren't the point. But it is cool to see this happening in a Ubisoft game. It does sound a lot like Rockstar kind of games, Red Dead Redemption kind of did a lot with detail in their NPCs living lives and reacting to things around them and stuff like that. So it's cool that Ubisoft is going in that direction too. I expect that we'll see probably some other big names, maybe Bethesda, Microsoft, possibly Obsidian, um, maybe even BioWare doing stuff like this in some of their RPGs. So that's pretty cool. And they were talking about things like, a creature normally will walk through the trees and sort of stalk its way around the jungle like it's normally on its day-to-day business, running errands, taking the mail, picking up the kids, whatever they do. But it also talked about how once that animal is angry, oh, my mail got stolen. Hey, my kid got suspended from school. Ah, what the heck? I stepped in my neighbor's poop. Because, animals do that. Um, they charge through the trees. They break everything down. They rampage, and they kind of have that sort of that interaction with the environment that's based on something that you caused, as opposed to they just have a very scripted way that they act no matter what when they're in that environment. So that's pretty cool. That's the kind of stuff I like to see in other games. And, as a sci-fi podcast, Avatar is probably going to be a game that pops up on here many more times up until launch.
Absolutely. And I guess kind of the last conversation to wrap up the podcast was one focused on this new Avatar game, but maybe can be spoken for all of the gaming industry, which is upgrading from whatever old thing you're using to something new, and people wanting games to be working on their older software and hardware. A big spark around Avatar is that they won't be putting this game out for last gen consoles. um, People are kind of upset about this, but I feel like it is a bigger issue with the gaming community as a whole, because upgrades are consistent across game generations. Games have to be updated to new software, and thus hardware has to follow in the path. Us PC players, we have to do this every 4 to 6 years. Console players, sometimes they can eke theirs out a little bit more. They can get a little more, time out of the money that they've spent. But they're no exception to this rule. At some point, you were going to have to give up your Xbox One, your PlayStation 4, and it sounds like that day has finally come, with Avatar ushering in this only on next gen consoles, or I guess you just call them current gen now,
Hmm.
which I'm really excited to hear. But what do you think about it?
I I am fully a proponent of democratizing gaming and allowing the largest amount of people to play games. But that does not mean the largest amount of people need to be able to play every game. Star Citizen is one of those games that made me realize that sometimes you just can't play the game on the hardware that you want. And companies like Microsoft and Nvidia are making strides in making sure that that's not the roadblock that it used to be, with cloud gaming. Who knows if Avatar will be available on cloud gaming? It sounds like you're going to really need to have a very fast storage system to run this game. So I don't know if that's really going to work, but ye unfortunately, it's just that's just the nature of things. We are constantly hurting our games to make sure that they run on decade-old technology. And that's all technology in the world of tech. I mean, look at how far electric cars have come in the last decade. Look at how far space travel has come in the last decade. Look at how far photography has come in the last decade. You can't just keep making stuff for things that are 10 years old. At some point, some people have to move on. I'm not saying every game, look at other games that come out. Some of the big mainstream games, I think those should be able to be played by everybody. But if you're trying to make a technical masterpiece, and a lot of these companies, I know they really want to, they have to target better technology, better hardware. So unfortunately, that's just something that we're gonna have to deal with.
It's the reality, and I'm no longer a console gamer. I used to be. My heart goes out to any Xbox player out there that has an Xbox One and is upset about this. But hey, the future is now, old man.
I am definitely still a
Got
console
to
gamer.
catch
I'll
up.
say that. I'm gonna always have a
Yeah.
console in my living room. I think it's just different, man. I mean, like there are things that I constantly run into with my computer that I'm like, this wouldn't have happened with a plug and play console. Like something random, like a plug ends up not being all the way in, or like my my wireless adapter malfunctions for whatever reason, or um, my mouse runs out of battery. Like there's the little things. People say that console gaming you don't need it because you got a PC, but I like the simplicity, man. I really do.
You-
That's why people used to get iPhones. Not so much anymore, but people used to love Apple devices because they were simple, they were easy to use, and they just did what you needed them to.
your mouse ran out of batteries. You mean you don't have that issue with console, or vice versa? Always have
Generally
to deal
no,
with batteries.
because because
Well,
because
yeah.
either
Don't you have to have batteries in your
I usually have a
thingy?
pretty long cord that makes it. I mean, and granted, I could do that with
Oh,
the
okay.
mouse, but yeah, I have a pretty long cord to be able to charge it with. And even then, the
Gotcha.
batteries in my controllers, I don't know, that's something I've never really dealt with. And I guess that's probably not a great example because my mouse battery doesn't die that much either. But I just,
You have to have wired everything. You have the best response time when you use wired, you know?
yeah, that's true. That's true. There's also a lot more to setting up your PC. Obviously, besides the price, there's also like the peripherals, the mouse pad. I got to pick the right keyboard, and and now that they're starting to add support for those peripherals on console. It's like, well, if I get an Xbox with an Xbox themed controller and an Xbox themed joystick and an Xbox themed webcam, yeah, hail corporate, sure, but I know all the things are going to work together very well. Just like if I get an iPhone and an Apple Watch and AirPods, I know they're going to work together very well. It's sort of the same exact approach as you see in tech. It's ecosystems, and ecosystems make things easy. We even see it with computer product makers. Um, Gigabyte's going to be like, hey, get our graphics card. Oh, but also get our power supply. Nvidia is going to be like, yo, get our graphics card. Oh, wait. But also, if you get our freaking, I don't know, what else do they make? Capture card or
Nvidia
something?
has well, Intel is Nvidia, but
Yeah,
Nvidia
they
makes a
work
graphics
together.
card. Intel makes a CPU. So
Yeah.
if you want to get a Intel CPU to work with the Nvidia graphics card,
Yeah.
kind of
So
thing.
let's say,
Yeah,
okay, let's say AMD then. Let's say, oh, yeah, AMD is like, hey, get our graphics card. Also get the CPU so they work together. It's like the same idea. So
absolutely.
I like consoles. I think people should still be able to play games on consoles, but I don't think you should have to have every game available to you. Some games just aren't there. But that's my final word on the topic.
That's all I got as well.
Cool. Well, guys, I would like to thank everybody who is here sitting in on the podcast recording. Thank you so much for being here live for this. Supporters, of course, get the front row seat. You guys get to sit here and chat with us, so we always get to see what you guys are saying and what you like and dislike about the podcast. But if you're listening to this or even watching this on YouTube, well, first, please subscribe. We've got a lot of interesting stuff coming up. I am lining up some guests for us, some people that you guys may know, and some people that maybe you don't, but are interesting to hear about. So There is a lot more planned for this podcast. We're going to keep going. We're going to keep chugging on. Please leave your reviews, though. Please rate the podcast on whatever service that you are using so we can stay up there and keep getting more people in here to enjoy this content. And please give it a thumbs up, maybe, and leave a comment on YouTube as well. Let us know what you liked and didn't like. And I'd like to thank everybody for coming to the launch sequence, week 6. It's been a good one. This is Space Tomato saying bye.
I can't wave and say bye at the same time, so I'm just gonna have to say bye and not.
You're
wave
waving
at
again,
you, so,
man.
You know.
I didn't even see him waving. I'm just sitting here waiting for the goodbye, and he's over here.
Man.
All right, guys. Thank you again. Much love. We'll see you next week. This has been the launch sequence. Have a good week, guys.